The views and opinions expressed in the following paid program are those of the host, callers, and guests, and do not necessarily reflect the views or positions of this station, its management, or owners. Welcome to Straight Talk and Retirement, your no-hype source for financial advice in making informed choices about your retirement plan. Get on the phone to talk today at 314-931-5877 or text your question to 84126.
The opinions voiced in this show are for general information only and are not intended to provide specific advice or recommendations for any individual. To determine which investments may be appropriate for you, consult with your attorney, accountant, and financial advisor or tax advisor prior to investing. Securities offered through LPL Financial, member FINRA SIPC. Investment advice offered through Private Advisor Group, a registered investment advisor. Private Advisor Group and JBL Financial Services, Inc. are separate entities from LPL Financial.
Now, here are your retirement coaches, Jeff and Aaron Lapidus.
Well, hello, St. Louis, and welcome to Straight Talk on Retirement, your live and local, St. Louis's favorite financial call-in show. I'm Jeff Lapidus, president of JBL Financial Services. Our offices are located in beautiful, nice and warm, downtown Olivet, Missouri. I am a 40-plus year veteran of the financial services area, a fee-based financial planner and wealth manager. And I'm joined by my crew, my oldest prodigal daughter, Erin Lapidus, who also is a fee-based financial planner and wealth manager, and her husband, my son-in-law, Robert Markham, our life insurance and fixed annuity sales specialist, as well as a fee-based financial planner and wealth manager.
Good morning.
Good morning. We help our clients make smart choices about their money. The way we do that is by designing a game plan, a written step-by-step strategy, a real game plan that has several goals in mind.
First is to preserve, protect, and prudently grow the assets our clients have taken their entire lifetimes to accumulate. Second is to deliver a reliable stream of income, one that they can count on, so they can do all the things they'd like to do during retirement.
And third is cost-effectively addressing their health care needs, like helping individuals enroll in Medicare and elect the right plan to couple with their Medicare coverage.
And then when they're done enjoying their assets during their lifetime, we show them how to pass them on to the people they love, whether it's their spouses or children, grandchildren, churches, or charities, whoever it might be, without Uncle Sam or the tax courts taking a big bite out of their money. And as their wealth managers, Aaron, Rob, and I watch their money every single day to make sure they're staying on track. And that's why they call us the retirement coaches. Gang, again, good morning.
Good morning.
And thank everybody out in Radio Land for tuning into the show today. We have a lot of important things to talk about. What's more important is what's on your mind. Don't hesitate to pick up the phone. Give us a call. We'd love to hear from you. 314-931-5877 or 84126 from the text line. And while we're waiting for your calls and texts, we do want to remind you that there are lots of ways that you can keep in touch with us during the week.
That's right. Log on to our website, jblfinancial.com. In the upper right-hand corner, you can click on the Contact Us button. Send us a request for a coaching session, financial, Medicare, or both. Ask us a question. If you get it in during the show, we'll try to get your answer live on the show as well. Or if you have a question after the show, you can just email us and we will make every attempt to get back to you within about 24 hours. On the lower left-hand side of the screen, there's a pop-up box that appears that says sign up for our monthly newsletter. We call it the Coach's Corner, and we do keep it archived on our website for the last 6 to 12 months so you can check out any past issues that you may have missed. However, we do have a fairly new February newsletter. Rob, tell us what's in it.
We do. It's February 2024's newsletter. So that's some great articles you're going to want to peruse. The first one being Saving Less. You're Not Alone. U.S. personal savings rate was 3.8% in October 2023, which was far below the all-time high during the pandemic, which, when you think about it, kind of makes sense. You were locked in your house and the government decided to send you money. Of course the savings rate hit an all-time high. I think inflation plus the end of stimulus checks definitely played a role in these numbers. And our next article, How Savers and Spenders Can Agree. spoiler alert, by talking through their differences. Money habits do run deep. A lot of times they were formed in childhood, and savers tend to hate debt. Spenders tend to be a bit more impulsive. It's very important to talk through your differences, and, some things you might ask your significant other is, what does money represent? How comfortable are you with debt? What rules, if any, would you apply to new purchases? Only by talking through your differences can you agree on a plan. And our next article, Key Retirement and Tax Numbers for 2024. There's been some subtle changes in key retirement and tax numbers, and we've got them all laid out for you. I'll just run through a couple real quick. The annual gift tax exclusion for 2024 is up to $18,000 in 2024. That's an increase of $1,000 from last year. The annual limit on traditional and Roth IRA contributions is now $7,000, and that's up from $6,500 last year. And employees participating in 401k plans can now defer up to $23,000 in 2024, up from $22,500 last year. And our last article, Federal Reserve key meeting dates. For those of you who like to track interest rate decisions, we have a great calendar of key dates for your perusal.
Awesome. We call it the Coach's Corner. You can access it by logging on to our website, jblfinancial.com. Click on that lower left-hand icon that pops up that says sign up for our monthly newsletter. We'll get it out to you every single month. Dad, did you fall asleep over there? I know it's a couple hours early.
No, I'm okay, babe. I'm sorry. I hit the mute button because I had to blow my nose. So I apologize.
Thank you for the play-by-play.
You're a little too much information. Sorry about that. But again, we want to remind everybody that all of our clients are folks like you. They're our listeners. They're 55 and older. They would like to retire, or they're already retired. And as Aaron mentioned, we create a game plan for them that have the goals of having a fun, hopefully financially successful and worry-free retirement. For those folks that are new listeners to our show, we're a little bit different. We like to tell stories, and these are stories about folks that we're visiting with during coaching sessions as well as clients and prospective new clients on different ideas and issues, opportunities that they have during these coaching sessions. We find that that's fun. What's also fun is answering your questions. Again, our phone lines are open. We'd love to hear from you. 314-931-5877 or 84126 from the text line. So if we don't have any texts that are on the line or phone calls,
the text line is relatively quiet. Not a one yet.
People are gearing up. They're getting ready.
Well, that's great. And so why don't we start off, if we can, with let's talk about one of the segments that we love to do, which we call the Rock Star of the Week. Joe's 63. He's a district manager for a locally owned franchise of a major food chain. His wife, Jill, again, this is no comparison with Joe and Jill Biden, of course, is a nurse.
Gosh,
I didn't even notice that. That was nice.
Well, I was going to, we've done Ricky and Lucy, and Bill and Hillary a little too obvious. So I thought we'd do Joe and Jill today.
Maybe next week we'll get a Donnie and Melania.
Well, we've had Dandy Donald Dollars before, so it's not uncommon that we might see that. But Joe's wife, Jill, is a nurse, and she currently works at a large hospital here in town. She enjoys her work and plans to continue until 65. Again, both of them are 63 when she's eligible for Medicare. So Joe's wondering, can I leave today if I want to? And naturally, they've got two questions. First one is, does the money work? Do we have enough to make things work together with Jill continuing to work and me being retired? And how about healthcare? So what we generally like to do is we like to look at this from two different sides. Number one is what happens when we like to say all the faucets are turned on, whether there's pension income, whether there's Social Security income, etc. We're at the end, and then we kind of like to come back to the beginning, which is one spouse is working, one isn't. So let's talk about, we'll call this scenario 1, which is they've both retired. Jill's, of course, worked a couple more years. Joe's been retired. And they decide that they want to wait until Joe's normal retirement age at 67 before taking his Social Security. And for a lot of folks, there's a reason to do that. And in many cases, a spouse who may be either the same age but may have had less earnings during their lifetime, they may be eligible for a spousal benefit. But we know that because they were born after 1954, that Jill would not be eligible to choose a spousal benefit versus her benefit unless Joe was taking his Social Security. So, let's talk a little bit about Joe. Joe has a 401k, right?
Joe does, and it's $1.4 million. And Hillary's 403B plan has.
You mean Jill, unless Bill's wife Hillary is having an affair.
Yeah, that's what threw me off. It went from from Bill to Hillary. Like, whoa.
Well, whatever makes you feel more comfortable, Rob. We can go that way. Okay.
So Joe's got $1.4 million, and Jill has $310,000 in her 403B plan. They both have a Roth IRA that has $65,000. They have an additional $90,000 in a brokerage account and $62,000 in a money market account, which is doubling as their vault. So they have a total of $1.9 million excluding the vault money.
Yeah, we never like to include that because we consider that money that's already set aside. It's not necessarily for things that you'll be consuming right away, but it is for emergency purposes or just liquidity and comfort. So we exclude that from their total asset value in terms of what we have available to make their monthly income work.
So let's talk about scenario 1. They both leave work today. So they have an income of a desired income of $8,000. We know we have to scale that up for taxes. That brings us to a pre-tax need of $9,600. When we combined Joe's and Jill's Social Security, that's $4,600. So that leaves us with a $5,000 deficit a month. Scale that up over 12 months. Annually, that's $60,000.
So in this particular scenario, we said they're both going to retire, but they're going to wait until 67, their normal retirement age, to take their Social Security benefit. So the $60,000 of annualized income needed requires about $1.5 million of capital. We know that because if we have a lump sum of capital and we want to live off of the interest and the earnings of it, history shows us that a 4% rate of withdrawal will give us the best opportunity to do that over a long period of time. So we know that they need that $1.5 million. So what do we do between 63 and 67 when they're able to take their benefits? We know that we're going to have to replace the entirety of their income need, that $9,600 a month. We're going to have to do that for a 3-year period, which means we're going to need an additional $345,000 to get them from today when they retire to 67 when they reach their normal retirement age. And we take a very conservative approach, which is we assume no interest or earnings off of their capital. We're just, what if we set aside X amount of dollars and cash flowed it to you on a monthly or annual basis, however you prefer it, and we were able to ensure that you had enough to live off of for the next 3 years without any market fluctuation. So when we take the $1.5 million that they will need for the long term, and we add it to the $345,000 that they will need for the short term, basically our bridge to get to Social Security income, we're going to need about $1.845 million.
And that's great because they have $1.9 million without including their vault.
So they've got a little bit of cushion there, which is nice. But we really know that scenario is the most extreme example because Jill isn't interested in retiring yet, which is fantastic. So let's look at it from another position, which is Joe takes his Social Security right away, and Jill continues to work, which is essentially sounds like what their desired plan is.
So we still have that desired income of $8,000. We have to scale that up for taxes, bringing us to $9,600. But now we have Jill's income at $3,000 a month, and that Joe's faucet of Social Security being turned on at $2,600 a month. So that leaves us with $5,600 against a $9,600 pre-tax need. So that leaves us with a shortfall of $4,000 a month, which we have to scale up over the year, bringing us to a total of $48,000, which is a lot less than the $60,000 that they needed. So we only need $1.2 million using a prudent rate of withdrawal of 4% to meet that need.
That's right. And just to give a little differential here, if Joe takes at right away at 63 years old, his benefit will be $2,600 versus waiting. That would bump the benefit up to $3,000 a month, as we described in the first scenario. So we can tell in both cases, regardless of what Joe and Jill decide to do, they're going to be in a place where they have enough capital as well as income to meet their retirement goals, meaning they're going to be able to maintain the same lifestyle the day after they retired as the day before.
Yes, and additionally, what it really also tells them is that they have a lot of options. Taking Joe's Social Security at his retirement, putting it off. Jill, obviously, as she continues to work, her benefit is going to continue to accrue slightly, and that'll provide more income when she decides to do that. And we really haven't even talked about the taxability. You know, in the assumptions that we make here, we're assuming that all the income that they're receiving are from taxable income sources, which may or may not necessarily be the case. We know that they do have a fair amount of non-retirement assets, approximately $90,000 in a brokerage account. They also have $65,000 in Roth IRA. So there's about $150,000 there that we could also, if we decide we would like to, begin to draw from to reduce the taxability of that income. And certainly that's something that we might want to consider when it comes to what their effective tax rate would be, and something that we measure all the time.
And then the second big question they had was, what about health care? Because that really can potentially throw a wrench into people's retirement plans because of the expense. If they elect option one, we will have to take a look at using COBRA to bridge to Medicare, or a private health insurance policy through the Affordable Care Act or directly with a provider. We can do that math depending upon what the best, what the coverage versus premium is and what they are comfortable with. But if Jill elects to continue working, so we are focused on scenario number 2, where Jill continues to work and Joe potentially takes his Social Security or not. What we would suggest for health insurance for Joe is that he jumps onto Jill's health insurance policy, so she's able to cover him, hopefully at a preferred rate from what we would find privately, but also at a pre-tax rate, which means Jill's not going to be taxed on the cost of Joe's health care, but her paycheck will go down a little bit.
And the nice thing for Joe is that because he's retiring, that's what we call a qualifying event. So he could be added to Jill's coverage without any waiting periods, pre-existing conditions, etc. He may be required to show a certificate of prior credible coverage, which he would be receiving from his employer after his termination. So lots of options. The big thing for them was they really wanted to feel comfortable that a lot of these questions were answered and answered capably, so that they knew that at the end of the day, they were holding the cards. And that's what it's nice. What's nice about being a rock star, you have more options, you have more opportunities, whether it's in electing Social Security, electing to leave, etc. And I know that Aaron and I have a meeting next week with one of our clients who we've been working with many years. She happens to be in her early 60s, just turned 62, which was pivotal for her. She's single in terms of Social Security election, and her employer just decided that they want her back in the office 2 to 3 days a week. Well, they moved their offices and again, obviously, she became a stay-home employee, if you want to call it work-from-home employee, during COVID. But they moved her offices from 10 minutes from her home to 45 minutes from her home. So she's really has a decision, a question about, can I afford the same questions as Joe and Jill did, which is, can I afford to leave? When do I make my Social Security elections? How I deal with healthcare issues? How do I continue to create a tax efficient income that I can count on that will last as long as I do? So, not uncommon questions, but what's fun for Joe and Jill is, woohoo! They're rock stars, and we love that, don't we?
Absolutely. And having those benefits of knowing when to turn on Social Security and what life looks like when all those faucets come on, it's a beautiful thing.
And it's easy. And what's neat is that we do these through coaching sessions at our office, which is easy to do. We arrange for about an hour. We ask you to bring a lot of information with you so that we can get a good overview of your finances as well as your wills and trusts, etc., other legal documents, so that we make sure that you have the proper foundations in place. And then we sit and we talk for about an hour trying to figure out many of these questions. And we do this. And we like to do this on our big 6x8 electronic whiteboard where we can create a game plan for you right in front of you, which is kind of fun. Again, our phone lines are open. We'd love to hear from you, 314-931-5877 or 84126 from the text line.
And I think it's just about time for our first break of the hour. And when we get back, we just received our first text question, so we'll get to that right after these messages.
It's the dead of winter, so come alive with Dogtown. Dogtown Pizza, that is. Fight the cold months with a hot meal, and with 11 different varieties, you can have it breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Shake off Old Man Winter with a bacon, or melt Jack Frost with a hot chicken, or a deluxe, or veggie, or my personal favorite, you know it, pepperoni peppercini. Beat the cold and heat up your winter with a Dogtown Pizza.
Don't let Cupid's dart miss its mark. If I can't trust you with my chocolates, how can I trust you with my heart? Send the finest chocolates on the planet this Valentine's Day and hit your mark. Saddleback Chocolates, O'Fallon, Illinois. Saddlebackchocolates.com. It's Kismet.
Welcome to Camden on the Lake Resort at Lake of the Ozarks, your ideal venue for unforgettable group events in 2024 or 2025. Whether you're organizing corporate events or weddings, we have availability tailored to your needs. Our full lake view suites and newly remodeled guest rooms provide a luxurious stay, and our banquet and meeting spaces offer the perfect backdrop for your event. Contact our sales office at 573-365-5620 to start planning your next extraordinary occasion at Camden on the Lake Resort. Winter is here, and that means snow, ice, and sometimes dangerous cold. The air quality experts at Aldon would like to remind you to schedule your furnace maintenance now. Aldon will inspect and service your furnace or boiler for proper operation and ventilation to avoid health or safety issues. And remember to inspect and service your humidifiers. St. Louis winters can turn harsh quickly. Being prepared saves lives. Mention KTRS and receive $40 off any repair job over $200. Some restrictions apply. Call the indoor air quality specialists at Aldon at 314-567-5585 or visit al-don.com.
Hi, I'm Jim Regna, CEO of Triad Bank. Triad Bank is a proud sponsor of the Big 550s Shop Local. Shopping local provides jobs, services, and taxes for our local communities. I encourage you to shop local whenever possible.
I'm Mike Robinson with Robank Properties, and I want your fixer-upper home or condo. It's crazy to spend a ton of money fixing it up when I will pay you top dollar right now. I don't even care what condition it's in. Your trash is my treasure. No inspections, no contingencies, just cold, hard cash. Call me, Mike Robinson, at 314-283-0867. That's Mike Robinson, 314-283-0867, or at ROBANG Properties.com.
So you say you crave choices. Have you seen the Cafe Appliance line? Commercial style ranges, unique food storage options, plus quiet, convenient cleanup.
With an abundance of features, plus finishes like white or black matte and stainless steel. And now you can get 6 different beautiful hardware options. Just as your style evolves, your rooms do too. From changing out throw pillows to adding new art, your home is your canvas.
Satisfy your appliance cravings with the cafe line at any of the appliance discounter showrooms. Where, as always,
ours are your savings.
This is Jeff Lapidus, the retirement coach. Wouldn't it be great to have a game plan, a real strategy, so that no matter what was going on in the stock market, the economy, or the world, that you could be confident about your retirement? Wouldn't that be great? If you're within 5 years of retirement, call me today at 314-863-0008. That's 314-863-0008. Or send me an email, jeff@jblfinancial.com, to arrange your free coaching session. Let's get started on your retirement game plan today.
Let's talk about smart choices for your money. It's Straight Talk and Retirement on the Big 550 KTRS. Here are your retirement coaches, Jeff and Aaron Lapidus.
Well, welcome back. It's 9:30 here on the Big 550 KTRS. Talk Radio St. Louis. We're here to answer your questions and calls at 314-931-5877 or 84126 from the hopefully heating up and hot and heavy text line.
I told you they were just gearing up at the first half hour.
Floodgates have opened, and our first texter writes, I am currently working part-time, semi-retired, and the business has offered me the option of contributing to a Roth IRA. My question is there a limit for 2024, and how much can I deposit into that account? You can deposit this year $7,000 into that account with the catch-up provision of an extra $1,000. If it is a Roth 401k option, you can put as much as $23,000 in there with catch-up provisions pushing that number up to over $30,000, $30,500. This can only be earned income, as I'm sure you're aware.
And the catch-up provision that Rob mentioned is for individuals that are over the age of 50. You get to put a little extra in if you have a little extra to put in. Our next texture writes, is there a simple formula or a calculator for seeing your growth in stocks? I realize you may be paid a 3% dividend. Also, the other factor of stocks hopefully appreciating in value, would it be considered safer to just put that money into the S&P 500 since that has a greater return over the last 20 to 30 years? So the first question to answer, most individuals have dividends and interest reinvested into the securities that have produced those dividends and interest. So you're buying more shares over time. A simple way to determine what your growth has been, simply take the beginning date that you'd like to look at. So if it's at the beginning of this year, if it's since you opened the account, take that balance, then take your ending balance. So if you want to look at yesterday or the beginning of this year, take that balance, take the second balance, subtract it from the first balance, and divide it by the second balance's number, and that will give you your growth over time. If your portfolio is balanced between stocks and bonds and you want to specifically look at your equity component, you're going to have to subtract out the bond component of your portfolio. However, most people look at their portfolio as a whole when determining what their growth over a specific period of time has been. So they'll combine the fixed income component with the equity component of the portfolio. And then the second question, and Dad, if you want to jump in on this too, would be, in my opinion, having a well-balanced portfolio. So, for example, using the S&P 500, you're going to incorporate not only dividend-paying securities, but you'll also incorporate growth securities because the S&P 500 makes up the 500 largest companies in the United States. So you're going to get a mixture of both, which is good for balance and also hopefully smoothing returns over a long period of time, because we know that value securities, which usually tend to pay dividends, and growth securities, which usually see higher appreciations in value, tend to switch places in terms of who's doing better.
Yes, and also that fund manager, assuming that you're using a fund as compared to a exchange-traded fund, which is really purely an index, They can make sales during the year. They can sell certain securities and get the portfolio rebalanced. When they do that, you could also see some long-term capital gains or even short-term capital gains. There is a significant difference between and potential for return between an individual security and a fund, and I think what Aaron was trying to get to, which I think is extremely important, is that diversification doesn't avoid risk. What it does is it smooths risk. The analogy that I like to use with folks is if you walk into a building and there are two elevators that you can choose from, and there's a sign above each elevator opening that said one says 3 cables, the other one says 15 cables. Which one are you going to get on? Certainly the one with 3 cables maybe gets you there faster, maybe it gets you there slower. Maybe the ride's a little less bumpy, etc. But with 12 cables, I'm sure you would feel a little more safer and more secure that any calamity that occur wouldn't become a personal calamity for you at that point. So,
personal calamities.
Exactly. It's one of these, like the Exorcist movie, etc. So,
oh my gosh.
Again, what we're talking about here is smoothing risk over a period of time. So, again, and there are multiple ways to do this. Certainly, if you're using a fund like the S&P 500, as Aaron mentioned, you're getting not only growth-oriented securities, but also dividend-oriented securities. And so, if you really want to do a little concentration in that area, you certainly can do that by choosing a fund that maybe is either A, growth-oriented, or B, if you're looking for the dividends, more dividend-oriented, and obviously one that's diversified. So, very good question. We appreciate that.
And we want to thank our first texter for breaking the ice because we got a few more to go.
And our next texter writes, hey, I recently bought some shares of stock. Is there an automatic rule that says unless I notify them, they're going to send me a dividend check every quarter, or they're going to reinvest and buy some additional shares? How does that work?
Most broker-dealers, and you'll just want to call and chat with the individual that you are working with, or if you are directing these investments yourself, the custodian that you're working with, most custodians default their accounts to reinvest dividends and interest into the securities that you've already purchased. However, it is very easy to change that. You'll call them and let them know either you want every security inside of your account to the dividends and interest to go to cash, or you're even able to elect specific securities that you would like the dividend from, allowing other securities to have those dividends and interest reinvested. You'll probably have to sign another form in order to have the check mailed to you every quarter, or you may prefer to have the money directly deposited into your account each month, or each quarter rather, if that's how you would like to receive the funds, and they can set up a link between your account with the custodian that's holding your securities and a bank account of your choosing, and they can automatically deposit it when the dividends and interest accumulate. They can send it out to you every quarter.
Yeah, we call that a sweep, and that's something that you can easily turn on and turn off at your discretion. So that's good.
And our next texter writes, I'm retired and I have not yet taken Social Security. I was thinking of pulling gains from stocks and mutual funds and putting those gains in a 1 to 3 year CD to take advantage of higher interest rates before they go down, along with investing in a bond fund. Or do you think, for safety reasons, CDs are better? This is an IRA. I have a small pension and I live on $80,000 a year.
Well, I love the idea of capturing some gains, but I guess my first question would be, if you're going to take the gains and invest them in something that is illiquid like a CD, and you have a small pension but you're living off of $80,000 a year, if the pension isn't covering over the $80,000, where do you plan to get that extra cash to live off of every year? So I might not necessarily recommend using a CD for all of the gains that you're gonna realize, so to speak.
Yeah, that's extremely important. Liquidity and the timing of needing money certainly is a decision that you might want to consider. I guess the other question that was posed here was certificates of deposit, which again have their principal is fixed. There's not going to be any fluctuation in value there. Obviously, they would accrue dividends as compared to a bond fund, where you have the potential for capital appreciation as well as capital depreciation. One thing to consider here is that what we're really looking at is the direction of interest rates. We know that the Fed has basically put a pause on rate increases, and there's been discussion about, well, if the economy begins to slow, we know that the tool that they have to use is reducing interest rates. When interest rates fall, bond funds increase in value because you're getting two components of return. One is obviously the interest that's being accrued through the bonds, the underlying bonds in that portfolio, but also it becomes more valuable because as newer bonds are issued out in the market, and you have bonds that are older that have higher coupon rates, if interest rates have fallen, they become more valuable, and therefore you see the potential for capital appreciation. So again, in a diversified portfolio, you really should have diversified fixed income positions, not only when it comes to length of the maturities, whether it's short-term, intermediate, or long-term, but also what we're looking at maybe is different types of securities, whether they're corporates, whether we're looking at government-issued ones, et cetera, international, et cetera. So where the rest of your portfolio is positioned in fixed income securities, I think would also be an important component and decision. There's just no real, this is the right answer. Is that a good way to put it, babe?
I think so, and also it's important to keep in mind that we don't want to compare things that are not alike, meaning just because they're on the fixed income side, CDs are not something that we would want to compare to a security that's holding bonds. So a mutual fund, an index fund, an electronically traded fund. We do want to keep each of those in their own lane because just as you mentioned, Dad, they serve different purposes and they have different functions in your portfolio. Also, they're difficult to compare because they really aren't the same type of product or type of security when we're looking at fixed income.
You know, putting the liquidity issues to the side, I like where his mind is as far as like, you know, I know the interest rates are probably going to come down sooner rather than later. Is there a way of locking in a higher interest rate for longer? So, you know, he's on the right track.
Absolutely.
And
no question about that. And just as a final note here, we know that, as Aaron was making, really the point is you can't compare the two because we know that certificates of deposit issued by commercial banks do carry FDIC insurance, but bonds that are issued.
Oops, it looks like you might have cut out there for a moment, Dad. So I apologize. I wasn't exactly sure where you were going with that thought, but since you're off the air for a moment, we're going to head off the air for a moment as well. We'll be back because we have several more text questions to get to.
So don't touch that dial. We'll be back with more Straight Talk on retirement after these messages.
This is Susan.
Hello.
She wants to protect her income bucket from Uncle Sam.
The 3 types of buckets inside my big bucket: taxable income, tax-deferred income, and tax-free income.
Ferguson Financial Group in Chesterfield does not provide tax or legal advice, but does specialize in financial products and personalized strategies to emphasize the tax-free income bucket so you can keep more of what you have worked so hard to earn.
Thank you, Ferguson Financial Group.
Find out more at ffgstl.com. That's ffgstl.com. Ferguson Financial Group.
Hey, what's that? It's my new Yeti cocktail shaker. It matches my ice bucket and my drinkware.
Ooh, Yeti makes the coolest stuff.
Yeah, they do. And I got it all at Schnarr's.
Frank Blair from Schnarr's Hardware here. Are you looking to give a gift that your loved one can use year-round? Then give the gift of the best gear with Yeti products found at Schnarr's Hardware. We have a wide selection of hard and soft coolers, insulated drinkware, waterproof and everyday bags, other outdoor gear, and accessories. Every Yeti performs when it matters most, whether it be commuting, hiking, boating, hunting, camping, or just getting together with friends in the backyard. Find the right Yeti for you at Schnarr's. For hours, locations, or to shop online, go to schnarrs.com. Because gifting is easy when you start at Schnarr's.
The dead of winter might sound like the worst time to do tree pruning.
But Ray's Tree Service reminds you that there are advantages to pruning in the winter. Right now, your trees and shrubs are dormant, which allows the professionals at Ray's to remove those dead and weak branches and get your trees and shrubs ready for a healthy spring and summer. For your free money-saving winter quote, call 314-821-2665 or visit raystreeservice.com. That's raystreeservice.com. Welcome to Pizza World, your hometown pizza, located on Olive Boulevard just west of 270 and in Shrewsbury off Murdoch Avenue. Pizza World delivers the finest flavors of gourmet pizzas, chicken Alfredo, Texas barbecue, spicy Thai, and the Pizza World signature gourmet Apodanza. See the entire menu at pizzaworldonline.com. For office meetings, family get-togethers, or watch parties, call Pizza World. The finest flavors of gourmet pizza, pastas, and salad. Pizza World.
Are you worried about your budget for your new kitchen or bathroom? Call me, Anne Marie Bogus, the co-host of the Inside Out Show on the Big 550 and owner and designer of Anne Marie Design Studio. Visit our website, annemariestudio.com, where you can use our budget calculator tool to see a preliminary breakdown for your project. See how we can transform your old drab kitchen or bath into the envy of your neighborhood at Anne Marie Design Studio in Wildwood. Visit our website, annemariestudio.com.
And on your radio with the KTRS Very Special Valentine.
I like to consider myself a love expert.
Tap your Big 550 KTRS app or go to KTRS.com.
And nominate your special love to win $100 gift cards to Herbaria, Walter Knoll Florist, and Newsteaders Fine Jewelers.
Nominate now and listen Valentine's Day for the Big Special Valentine's winners.
Brought to you by Herbaria, Walter Knoll Florist, Newsteaders Fine Jewelers,
and your favorite Cupid, the Big 550 KTRS. Let's talk about smart choices for your money. It's Straight Talk and Retirement on the Big 550 KTRS. Here are your retirement coaches, Jeff and Aaron Lapidus.
Well, welcome back to the show. We're about 45 minutes through our first hour. Our phone lines are open. We'd love to hear from you, 314-931-5877 or 84126 from the text line. We also do receive emails as well, which is kind of fun. So take it away, kiddies.
And our next texter writes, speaking of bonds, they seem to be offering less than par. Is now a good time to be buying good quality bonds?
This is a great illustration of what you were just talking about, Dad, right? Which is as interest rates start to pull back, you're going to see different or rise in some cases, because although the Fed does have control of the federal funds rate, bonds will manipulate based on expectation. So, for example, I think it was early last week we heard one of the Fed chairs say that he wasn't sure if we were going to see rates decrease as quickly as everyone else was considering before he made his speech. So we saw rates start to creep back up again. He didn't actually change the rate. We saw, Jay Powell held rates steady during the last Fed meeting. So bonds, just like equities do, oftentimes trade off of expectations. So at that particular point, you were probably seeing some bonds that were holding a lower coupon decrease in value as new bonds were being issued with slightly higher coupons.
Exactly. And what's important here again is that, high quality bonds are certainly something that can be a valuable anchor on the fixed income part of your portfolio, because we're talking about investing in companies that have a lower default rate, typically larger companies, and because their default rate is lower than a smaller company, and maybe also industry-wide, possibly a less risky industry, what happens is they pay a lower coupon rate, just like when we look at the most safe and secure investment that you can make at this point are government securities, because they're backed by the full faith of the U.S. government and, frankly, all the taxpayers out here supporting the U.S. government. So it's good.
Okay, and our next texter writes, which is better for retirement and taxes, a Roth IRA or just a traditional IRA with some other, or is there some other better fund that would work? Mainly concerned about taxes. I am self-employed.
All right. So the first thing to consider would be if you're making contributions because you're self-employed, my opinion is always, as you're working, most likely you're going to be in the highest tax bracket that you will be in before retirement. So take advantage of the traditional IRA, which will decrease your taxable income, therefore hopefully giving you a more substantial tax benefit while you need it while you're still working. Whereas, when you are beginning to make distributions over time, it really depends upon what other income sources you'll have in retirement. If your self-employed income isn't going to stop, for example, you own rental companies, and that's going to convert from paying yourself to run it to, passive income being, the rental income that you'll be receiving, versus what your Social Security is and pension. You may consider taking distributions over time that will keep your tax bracket consistent. The ultimate goal isn't to pay no taxes for a short period of time and then lock yourself into paying more taxes. It really, in my opinion, I think it makes sense to try to maintain consistency in your taxable income over time. One, because you know what your taxes are going to be and what that expense is in retirement. And two, there aren't any surprises.
Yeah, it's a time value of money issue. Deductions today are worth more than potential deductions in the future. So as Aaron said, and something that we know and we realize is that I think it's fair to say that across our client base, over, I want to say 85 to 90% of the folks that retire with us retire with an income, at least pre-inflation adjusted, of less than $90,000 a year, or less than basically $8,000 a month. That being the case, their marginally effective tax bracket is only 10%. So putting money into a Roth IRA where they're bypassing the tax deduction, generally when their incomes are much higher, doesn't make a lot of sense.
But because all of these types of accounts, except for all retirement accounts, have contribution limits. If it's a traditional IRA, 401k, or a Roth IRA or 401k, once you've met those, if you are saving enough that you've met those contribution limits in a year, I definitely think it makes sense to continue to diversify your portfolio, not just where your money, not just how your money is invested, but where it's invested. So you already have your pre-tax account. It would be a great idea to set up an account that is not a retirement account, so many times referred to as a non-retirement account or an after-tax account, and start creating an investment portfolio there, because that's going to be tax preferred over time. You will pay taxes on dividends and interest, and if you make sales, short or long-term capital gains. However, that's going to have preferential tax treatment to straight ordinary income, which is what distributions from traditional IRA accounts will have.
Yeah, the only thing I would add here is that I believe that it's a fallacy, and I say this only because of 20 years worth of working with folks like you, helping them create their retirement game plans. People don't use their Roth IRAs or consume them as a part of an income stream. They love the idea that they're sitting there, they're growing income tax free for them, and then frankly in many cases they're not going to use them for their children.
Income tax free if they have met the two requirements of it's been in place for 5 years and you're over 59 and a half.
Thank you, babe. Appreciate that clarification. But they typically use those for larger expenditures, purchases, down payments, projects, etc., so that they don't have to invade their taxable retirement accounts.
Right, because we've seen many clients are looking at purchasing a car. They've held out for a long time because they don't love the prices. They've still been holding out because they still don't like the prices. And
sound like me.
Well, when people are looking at SUVs that are over $60,000, there is a little bit of sticker shock there, and $60,000 from a Roth, if you've met those two requirements of being over 59 and a half and having it in existence for 5 years, that's really $60,000 versus having to make a distribution from your retirement account of nearly $60,000. Just as you mentioned, Dad, most people are living off of less than $90,000 a year, so to think you have to take almost 2/3 of your annual income, add taxes to that to make a purchase. A lot of people prefer the idea of having that after-tax money or that Roth money to be able to make those larger purchases with, because it can really keep the expenses down both for the actual purchase itself and then for the taxes.
I kind of look at a Roth account as like a quasi-vault. It's a place to get money on a tax-free basis for, say, an emergency.
That's also a good point. However, when we think of emergency funds, we generally don't want them to be at risk, and most people have their Roth accounts invested in some way. So you want to make the distinction, but it is a good point that this is another place that if a large expense comes up, you would be able to grab at some funds without
creating taxable events.
Exactly.
Like an inner vault. No, I mean, you have like
confuse
different.
the folks. How many vaults? It's like Batman. How many vaults are there?
You got the outer vault, the inner vault, and then the super inner vault, like the inner sanctum.
Is that the No Way Jose money?
Right.
Okay.
Right.
The cone of silence money, or what?
No, Nanette money.
We did get an email question through the website, which is great. Do we have account minimums in order to chat with individuals? Dad, did you want to answer this one?
Sure. Bottom line is that we've never had account minimums. What we're most interested in is answering your questions and helping you get to where you want to go. We know that we're specialists. We work with folks that want to retire or within 5 years of retirement. So if there is a fit with us and you're a person that possibly is interested in delegating the investment responsibilities, if you're ready to take direction and wanting professional advice, there could be a fit. But again, we don't have a minimum, and it's easy to do. Just if you'd like to, you can either our person send us this email. You can go to our website, hit the Contact Us section, ask to set up a coaching session. Our staff will be happy to reach out to you. What they'll do is ask you to bring a list of information with you, wills, trusts, investment statements, etc., things for us to look at so we can understand where you're at. It's fun. It's free in our offices and all of that. We'd love to see you. Again, easy to do. Or if you want to, just give our office a call. Not today because we're not there. We're on the radio. But you can call us Monday, 314-863-0008. Again, 314-863-0008.
Well, you're not there today, but Rob and I will be there today because we have a chat with a prospective client. So we are happy to take Saturday appointments for anyone that is in the bucket that they are currently working and maybe doesn't have time during the week to cut out.
And our last texter writes, I am considering taking an early retirement offer at work. After my 6-month suffrage package runs out, I will need to begin receiving money from my retirement assets. Could you describe the process for planning for cash needs for income with clients? Thank you.
Well, baby, I mean, it's a quickie. What we're going to do is we're going to sit down and find out, A, how much you're spending on an after-tax basis each month. What is your life? What we like to do, just like we did in our last segment, we talked about our Rockstar folks, is we increase that amount by 20% for federal and state income taxes, which is a little bit heavy, but it's cool. What we then do is we then will compare what your sources are. Do you have a pension? Do you have Social Security income, etc.? We'll come out with what is that number that needs to be withdrawn every month. You probably have a very good idea about it. Most of our clients do, and prospective clients do. And what we then do is we take that number and we multiply it by 12. So as an example, if you needed $3,000 a month times 12 months is $36,000. We then divide that by 4%. So that would tell us that you would need approximately $900,000 of assets, retirement assets in that case, at 4% withdrawal rate to get $36,000 a year.
And we'll also be here to answer all of those other questions. When do I take Social Security? If I have a pension election, am I going to elect a pension or a lump sum option? When do I start taking money from my retirement accounts? How do we set that up?
What about my health care?
Healthcare, how do we transition from your employer-based coverage to either individual coverage or spouse's coverage if they happen to be continuing to work, or is it time for you to elect Medicare? So there are not only is a cash flow an important game plan in your retirement, but there are a lot of other moving parts that we like to, that one, have pulls on your cash flow, but secondly are important pieces of a full retirement game plan. So please don't touch that dial. We'll be back for our second hour of a Straight Talk Retirement.
Let's talk about smart choices for your money. It's Straight Talk and Retirement on the Big 550 KTRS. Here are your retirement coaches, Jeff and Aaron Lapidus.
Welcome back to Straight Talk on Retirement, hour number 2. I like to call this the Hour of Power.
That's right, because we kick off hour number 2 every single week with our Smart Choices About Your Healthcare segment.
Because you care, we talk Medicare. I love that.
It makes me laugh every single time.
Oh, thank you, Dad, for that one.
That's a great
So let's
one,
talk
Dad.
a little bit about Elizabeth. Elizabeth has an original Medicare plan with a supplement. She heard a segment we hosted last week on AEP, on switching plans from original Medicare to Medicare Advantage, but she decided to stay where she was for another year. She ended up calling us to set up an appointment last week to talk to Frank about making the switch on this year's annual enrollment process. One of her concerns was that she was starting to develop cloudiness in her eyes, so she wanted to know how her current plan covered vision versus Medicare Advantage. We broke down the difference in eye coverage on original Medicare versus Medicare Advantage.
So here's a great opportunity for everyone. If you still haven't had the opportunity to review Medicare Advantage, and or maybe you're on a Medicare Advantage plan already, looking at Medicare Advantage, especially if you're already on it, here's the time in which you're going to be able to make a switch. So your annual enrollment period has already ended. That ended December 7th. However, if you're already on Medicare Advantage, then the great news is that you still have an opportunity to make a switch potentially if your plan isn't covering some of the needs that you have. So when Elizabeth came to chat with Frank, her main concern was, I have these eye issues. Did I make a mistake not switching from my traditional Medicare supplement to a Medicare Advantage plan? There are a lot of misconceptions about eye coverage under Medicare. Medicare will cover anything that's medically necessary for your eyes. So that includes things like refractive errors, cataracts, which sounds like what Elizabeth has been suffering from. That would be cloudiness of your lens, glaucoma, and diabetic retinopathy. So those are all things where you have to see a physician in order to be treated and have potential relief from that. So the medical side of your coverage is going to cover that for you. If you have a supplement like Elizabeth, then you're going to pay your deductible, your Medicare Part B deductible if you have Plan G, and then everything will be covered at 100% for you by the supplement and Medicare Parts A and B. One side note, though, and many people experience this on both Medicare, traditional Medicare and Medicare Advantage, which is that if you have cataracts and you're going to look at replacing a lens, Medicare is only going to cover the lens that is considered acceptable by Medicare. So they call that the standard Medicare lens. Most individuals, and I have heard from most individuals, that their physicians recommend you buy up the lens in one way or another. They have quite a few different options at this point. However, you are going to pay out of pocket the difference between the Medicare approved lens and what you purchase. That's not going to be covered under the supplement nor will it be covered under the Medicare Advantage plan, and that extra expense does not go towards your maximum out of pocket. So there are some instances where you're going to have to pay, regardless of if you're on a Medicare Advantage plan or on a supplement. So you do want to be clear on that going in, but it's also, they're your eyes, so it's important to make sure that you pick the thing that you want or that is most suitable for you once you've chatted with your physician. Now, the alternative here is when you are caring for your eyes, meaning you're having your annual exams or you're having, you need lenses or lenses that aren't in your eye, so like contact lenses or new glasses. Traditional Medicare supplements do not cover that for you, unfortunately. That's outside of the medical side of your coverage. So for most people, they're just paying out of pocket because if we look at individual eye coverage when you have a traditional Medicare supplement, adding a plan really just prepays your annual visit, and it may give you some discount on lenses and glasses. But what we found is most people don't need new glasses every single year. So setting a little bit of money aside every year if you have a supplement may make sense. So the year that you do have to buy new glasses, you already have a piggy bank set up. But you're doing your annual exams out of pocket, $60, $100. With Medicare Advantage plans, you have the ability to have an annual eye exam in most cases covered at no extra charge to you, so there would be no need to add extra coverage. And in addition to that, many of them provide coverage for those glasses, for contacts, which is really nice because a lot of people don't factor that into their annual medical expenses or, their medical expenses over a 5 or 10 year period. So the Medicare Advantage plans can, in many cases, help you reduce your overall medical expenses in retirement because they're going to throw in a few extras for you that you don't have to pay for, which is really nice.
I see things better now. Thank you, babe.
Oh, that was a great one. When they introduced those hearing aid benefits, how many times I got that great dad joke, what did you say? What was that?
Can you repeat that?
Yeah. Don't fall for that one anymore. But we have Frank. He falls for all the jokes. So if you're someone that, you have a Medicare Advantage plan and maybe you're not sure if it's the best Medicare Advantage plan, you still have several weeks to chat with Frank and you might be able to make a switch. We call that open enrollment period. It sounds like the enrollment period we went through at the end of last year, but it's not. It's a second one, special, just for you on Medicare Advantage. Give our office a call, 314-863-0008, and Frank can review your current coverage with you and see if there's something that maybe you missed during open enrollment. If you're on a supplement and Medicare Advantage sounds interesting, you can still give our office a call or send Frank an email, franklin@jblfinancial.com, and we will put you on the list to give you a call in October when it's time to review your coverage all over again.
And just speaking of caring for your eyes, being that was our Medicare segment, just a helpful reminder, digital eye strain, you get this from looking at phones and computers. That's a real thing. So you may want to implement the 20-20-20 rule. For every 20 minutes you spend looking at a screen, you want to take 20 seconds. I would say 2 minutes to look at something else. Get your eyes away from that blue screen because, it can cause migraines and it can degrade your eyesight over time, constantly looking at those screens without an interrupted break.
Great point.
Very good. Again, our phone lines are open. We'd love to hear from you. 314-931-5877 or 84126 from the text line. We usually see a lot of texts about Medicare questions because the fun part for you folks is that our office is the largest Medicare writer in the state of Missouri. All good. Have thousands of folks that we've helped enroll in Medicare, and whether it's a supplement or a traditional Medicare plan for them. And it's all folks like you that are our listeners. That's great.
That is. And you know what? Our text line is quiet for the moment. I know everyone's keying back up again because they have quite a few Medicare questions to ask us at 84126, or you're always welcome to call in, 314-931-5877. We're here to not only answer Medicare questions, but any questions you might have this morning. Did we want to get into our next topic?
Absolutely. And this is a fun one. It's not unusual for us to, as a part of the review of our clients' portfolios, not just their investment portfolios, but also we're looking at their life insurance portfolios. Folks have had contracts. They've had them for many, many years, and they have questions. And specifically, let's talk about Tom, shall we?
Let's. And Tom has a whole life policy, and it has a face amount of $120,000. He has been paying premiums on it for over 20 years. The cash surrender value is now $65,000, and that includes $9,000 in dividends. Total premiums paid are $30,000. If Tom doesn't need or want the death benefit any longer, what options does Tom have to get his money out of that policy to use for retirement? Well, the option that Thomas has is he can surrender the contract. He'll have to pay ordinary income taxes on the difference between the total premium paid and the surrender cash value. In this case, his cash value is $65,000, but he's paid $30,000 in premium. We minus the 30 off the 65. That leaves us with a $35,000 taxable gain.
Yeah, and I just want to add this. What's interesting is, and folks, you don't know this, but with most contracts, what most folks do is, especially with older whole life policies, what they will do is continue to accumulate dividends to purchase additional life insurance death benefits as well as cash value dividends. You still have, those aren't tax, they are, a dividend is tax free if you take it in cash, but it doesn't become a part of your basis if you reinvest it in what we call them dividend additions. So that's why in this particular case, what happened was Tom was seeing a big taxable gain because he reinvested those dividends over a period of time, and obviously they were greatly in excess of what his premiums were.
Well, he could surrender the contract. His next option is to execute a loan, which is a non-taxable transaction. He'll owe loan interest of approximately 6% or $3,600 a year. It will continue until his death, whereby the death benefit will be reduced by whatever loan amount is left.
That's a good one. The other thing is, and another important one is, there are what we call settlement options. If you look in your any life insurance policy in the back pages, there's tables that are there that tell you what you can do with those cash values. And they're what we call fixed annuity settlement options. And these come in several forms. Number one is you can take what's called a life-only option, where the insurance company will convert that cash value into a monthly income payment, and that will continue during your life. You could also alternatively pick out what's called a period certain benefit, 10, 15, 20 years. And the insurance company would take the cash value, you lose the death benefit, convert that into a monthly, or you could actually take a quarterly or annual income stream. That income stream would be payable for that fixed period of time. If you live past that fixed period, your benefits stop. If you die during the fixed period, what happens is the benefit payments, the balance of those benefit payments would be paid to your beneficiaries. So as an example, let's assume you picked out a 10-year cert, and your benefit, and you happen to die in year 8. What would occur is that your beneficiaries would receive the balance of the payments, those 2 years, over the same time period that you had elected. There's also a thing that are called, as you probably imagine, just like with pension plans, you can do what's called a joint and survivor option. So that what you're then doing is spreading those benefit payments over 2 lives, yourself and a spouse. And and there's also the last one, which is called certain in life. So what happens is you can say 10 years certain in life. So I get a certain amount for 10 years. If I live past that 10-year period, they'll continue until the time of my death, etc. The important part of this is that when you convert the cash values of a life insurance policy into an annuity fixed benefit, what happens is there's an exclusion ratio that is applied against each payment, which means that each payment contains not only principal payment, but also part interest payment. And the way that you figure all this out by the way, you don't need a calculator. You don't look at the policy. What happens is your agent, or in our case, is what we do is we get on the phone with the insurance company. We ask them for the various options, and what they'll do is print them out and send them to us so we can then take a look at them and then be able to make some decisions, which is kind of nice. But there are other options, right, Rob?
There are. And Tom's last option would be to exchange to an annuity contract. He can transfer the cash value to an annuity that could provide long-term care income benefits. If you do not receive a payout, the benefits will be tax-free versus a surrender or a settlement option. Or you could receive a high-interest benefit that will grow income tax deferred until you decide to pull the interest.
Well, that's great. And so in this particular case, when we were talking with Tom, we decided that what we'd like to do is he didn't need the money as immediately. He'd need it in a 5-year period. So, Rob, I thought you made a very interesting selection and recommendation to him to maximize the interest available to him. And truthfully, by going to an annuity contract, one of the big advantages was we got rid of the life insurance term charges in the contract.
That's right. And that's important because those term charges never really stop. So, I mean, they're just going to continue to pile up. So why don't we exit the contract and see if we can get you on the other side of that interest?
Right. So at the end of the 5 years, in this particular one that we chose for him, he could request 100% of the contract value without a penalty or a fee. But during the accumulation period, that 5-year period, he could withdraw also if he needed some money, up to 10% per year without a penalty. And there were no front-end fees or loads applied against the contract. 100% of the money invested. And again, by having this new annuity contract issued or having the money directly transferred from his life insurance company, who has the contract, to this new annuity contract directly, it was considered a non-taxable transaction. So he did receive a 1099-R, which was informational, but there was no income tax incidences for that.
And a lot of people have questions about that. Anytime you make a distribution from a retirement account, it could be a Roth IRA or a traditional IRA, even if you are not taxed. So, for example, let's say from the traditional IRA, you made a charitable donation. You're not taxed, but you are still going to receive a 1099. If you transfer IRAs from one custodian to another, or you transfer assets from a life insurance policy into an annuity or from one annuity to another, you're going to receive 1099s for all of those transactions because essentially the IRS wants to know where your money is held. So they're going to receive the 1099. It's not necessarily reportable income to you just because you have received a 1099. In fact, that's going to be reflected in the boxes on your 1099 that show the gross amount that was distributed, how much is taxable. In all those instances that we were discussing, you'll see zeros there. And most 1099s come along with a list of all the codes that are for the other boxes. So, for example, if you see a G in the distribution box, that represents a Roth IRA distribution. On the back of the 1099, usually you'll see a whole list of teeny tiny print that'll let you know what they're reflecting there.
Yeah, I think, again, the bottom line is that, like with IRAs, going from 401ks to IRAs, etc., doing a direct transfer between custodians gives you the best and, frankly, the least amount of income tax result.
Right.
If you surrender like in this case, if you surrender the contract, get the proceeds, and then decide, I'm going to purchase, as an example, I'm going to purchase an annuity contract after that. Well, guess what? You still have the taxable transaction that you have to deal with, which will be reported, and it's no longer considered a direct transfer. Unlike with an IRA, where you can one time during the year make a distribution and using the 60-day rule pay it back within that 60-day period. That can become a non-taxable transaction. So insurance has some interesting features to it. That's why it's important to really consult with a professional before you do it rather than afterwards.
Before we take our first break of this hour, we have the most important question of the weekend.
Who is going to win the Super Bowl?
Obviously the Chiefs. I mean, obviously.
I don't know. I tend to look at it as starting pitching, and whenever I see a football matchup, like starting pitcher Mahomes versus Brock Purdy.
Obviously the Chiefs.
Going to go with, I would like to see Brock Purdy win, but I just, not after seeing he beat Josh Allen, he beat Lamar Jackson, he did it both on the road. This should be a walk, I would think, but.
I like to go with excellence. Chiefs have a nice history of excellence so far.
I want to respectfully disagree with you on this.
What have you been converted out there?
Well, I'm not a 49ers fan. Okay, I have to be honest with you, and I'm not harping back to the Steve Young, Joe Montana days. But one thing about, at least about the 49ers, they tend to, and they're going to provide the Chiefs with a defense that is raring and ready to go. And you saw what happened in the championship game. I mean, they're down 21 points. They came back and won the game, shut them out. So.
Listeners, do not hold this against the man. We all know the Chiefs are going to win.
No, I tend to agree. I mean, from top to bottom, I think the 49ers have a better roster. But I think at the most important position with the most direct outcome on the game, the quarterback position, it's just, I mean, not that Brock Purdy's bad. I don't believe him to be bad. I think he's very capable. And he certainly equated himself well being a 7th-round pick. But, I mean, Mahomes is just, he's done it too many times at this highest level that, if I was a gambling man,
Oh,
can't
shoot,
do that.
I just received a text from Mom. She's going with the Chiefs, which means clearly the 49ers are not going to win.
I mean, it will be cool seeing
It's already been determined.
Well, all I can suggest here to you, my friend, and again, I'm not holding up for the 49ers here too much, is that the GOAT, Tom Brady, didn't win the Super Bowl every time he went in. He had losses as well. So it does happen. And frankly, we know Mahomes has already lost in there. So it's not a single guy sport. It's a team game. And I just think that the 49ers across both sides of the ball are just stronger.
Yeah, and I definitely agree that Tom Brady is the GOAT. You see a lot of scuttlebutt online about, can Mahomes catch him? And, even if he does catch him in Super Bowl victories, like the one time they played head-to-head in the Super Bowl, Tom Brady won. So I don't know how do you undo that? So I always think Tom Brady will be considered the GOAT.
We have a great question. We have a few additional great questions to answer when we get back. So let's take our first break of the hour. Don't touch that dial. We'll still be here to answer your text questions, so keep them coming. 84126 on the text line, or give us a call, 314-931-5877.
The only bowing sound you want to hear in your home is a great piece of classical music. And the only cracking sound you want to hear at home is the sound of tasty lobster for dinner. For other kinds of cracks, creaks, and bows in your home, you need Permajack of St. Louis. They have almost 50 years of experience repairing tens of thousands of settling foundations, bowed or buckling walls, as well as cracks in foundations. Permajack utilizes only state-of-the-art technology, techniques, and equipment. And many repairs come with a transferable life of structure warranty. Permajack of St. Louis lets you enjoy this kind of bow and that kind of crack on a stable and secure foundation. For your free inspection, system design, and estimate, call Permajack of St. Louis today at 636-225-2553. That's 636-225-2553. Permajack, solid as rock.
This is Jeff Lapidus, the retirement coach. Wouldn't it be great to have a game plan, a real strategy, so that no matter what was going on in the stock market, the economy, or the world, that you could be confident about your retirement? Wouldn't that be great? If you're within 5 years of retirement, call me today at 314-863-0008. That's 314-863-0008. Or send me an email, jeff@jblfinancial.com, to arrange your free coaching session. Let's get started on your retirement game plan today.
Let's talk about smart choices for your money. It's Straight Talk and Retirement on the Big 550 KTRS. Here are your retirement coaches, Jeff and Aaron Lapidus.
Well, we're back here on the Big 550 KTRS, Talk Radio St. Louis. I'm Jeff Lapidus, the retirement coach.
I'm Aaron Lapidus, the retirement coach.
And I'm Robert Markham, your life insurance and fixed annuity sales specialist.
You know, that was certainly a fun off-retirement discussion in regard to the game tomorrow.
Wait, we've got a great dad joke on deck that you didn't make. The team with the most points wins.
Okay.
Right?
Good with that.
I can't argue that.
Right?
There's 100% certainty of that one. Thank you.
Hey.
I do want to veer off topic here a little bit, and I'm not asking permission to do this, so I'm going to do it anyways. We had a press conference the other day.
Get the drop button. No, I'm just kidding.
You might want to here. But, one thing that we're hearing often in coaching sessions is folks are concerned about how will the markets react, what will happen in regard to this upcoming election. And I'm tired of hearing it. Every politician says this is the most important election in our lifetime. Well,
aren't they all?
It could be. And I was going to say that I did watch the press conference that happened that the president had after this report came out. Everyone has their opinions. I'm not going to give you mine, but I certainly would say that it put me back a little bit in seeing what happened. So this is certainly going to be a very interesting election season. And I will say one thing: the markets will open, and they'll continue to run, regardless of how the election comes out. But I think that we have two very stark choices here, and frankly, at least the next 4 years, future of our country is going to be determined by this election. So pay attention. At least for me, this press conference was very telling, and that's all I can say. Again, our phone lines are open. We'd love to hear from you, 314-931-5877 or 84126 from the text line.
Which is on the move.
And our next text, right, I inherited some money from my mom's annuities, was wondering whether that income, whether the taxes on that will be considered income.
So...
Yep.
Yes. But there's a few things that we want to consider here, because although it will be considered income, it depends on where mom's annuities were held. If they were held inside of IRA accounts, then 100% of the value is going to be taxable to you. You'll have to distribute it over a 10-year period, or take at least the required minimum of distribution that mom was taking and then have it liquidated within 10 years. If they were held outside of IRA accounts, then you'll want to ask the insurance company that's holding the annuities, what was mom's cost basis? And many times they'll report this to you when they send you the claim paperwork. What mom's basis was versus what the account grew to, that will be what your taxable amount will be on that particular contract. You won't have to pay taxes on the money that mom initially invested into that contract if it's held outside of an IRA.
So if mom invested $100,000 and it grew to $140,000, she's only paying taxes on the difference between those two, which in this case would be $40,000.
That's correct. Also, and we were talking about this in the break, which is if mom was taking distributions from an annuity that was held outside of an IRA, she may have been depleting the taxable component for you in advance. So definitely want to get with the annuity companies that were holding mom's annuities, and you can ask them all of these questions as a beneficiary. They'll provide you with all of those answers so you can be prepared. Many of the claim forms will also allow you to withhold taxes from the taxable amounts of these contracts in advance if that's something that you'd like to do.
Yeah, I think what's important here, again, is once you understand what the cost basis is, you do have some options. With a non-IRA annuity, we call these non-qualified annuities, they do have to be distributed within a 5-year period. And you do have some options there. Some insurance companies will say you can take it anytime during the 5 years, but when we pay you, we have to do it as a lump sum. Others will say, well, we don't really care how you take the distributions. You can take what we call partial distributions and do that as long as it's empty within a 5-year period. Get with your agent and or your financial advisor find out exactly what your options are so you can be in a position where you can make some good choices about your money. In particular, we've had this situation occur very regularly. And recently, one of our clients who passed away had a substantial annuity, which had large taxable consequences. And the question of their children, the beneficiaries, was, well, how do we absorb this money? What are the options that we have available to us? And so we found out what the options were available from the insurance company in terms of payouts.
And so each one can be different. So
yes.
they can put their own restrictions on how you're allowed to take the money over the 5-year period.
Yes, and so what we were able to do in some cases with some of the beneficiaries, we found out that they weren't making the maximum contributions to the retirement plans. So we made a recommendation in some cases to say, hey, let's take that money, take it home, increase your 401k contribution to absorb that amount of income tax that you have, assuming that they match up, so that it really became a wash. Other folks made some deductible contributions. We even found one of our clients who was self-employed that we're setting up a SEP for them. They were in a traditional IRA as a way to absorb higher amounts to reduce the tax mitigation. So working with someone that understands these plans and then understanding what options are available to you, in many cases you can get a good result.
We've got a follow-up.
And a texter writes, same inherited question. I received it as a beneficiary as a cash payout, and I thought there were no taxes on inheritance.
Unfortunately, non-qualified annuities do not receive a step-up in basis, which would alleviate taxes, nor do IRA assets. So if mom was holding the annuity inside of an IRA, that payout would be fully taxable, as well as if you receive the payout from a non-qualified annuity. You may want to give the annuity company a call and just ask if taxes were withheld from your cash payout, so you won't be surprised on next year's taxes if you receive the payout this year. If you received it last year, you'll receive a 1099 that reflects what you received if taxes were withheld or not. But in either instance, most likely you'll owe a portion of taxes, unless mom had a non-qualified annuity and she was down to her original basis in the contract and you were just receiving a portion of what she had already paid in. That would be probably the only instance in which what you've received is not taxable.
I would agree with that. And again, let's say alternatively, let's say this annuity was a part of mom's IRA. If you receive this distribution and it's done within 60 days, and you've had that less than 60 days, you could take that money, put it back into a beneficiary IRA, which would have your name and mom's name on it, and then you could then extend that payout out to 10 years.
I didn't think about that one. That's a good point.
Yeah, again, real important to go back, look at the paperwork. Talk to the financial advisor if you had one that was doing this, or if nothing else, you can give us a call, 314-863-0008, or send us an email with a little bit more detailed information. We hope we can help you.
And our next texter writes, would you be kind enough to repeat the formula used to calculate income needed for monthly expenses, etc.? I'd like to get a handle on my situation before making a few decisions, including professional help.
Sure. So the simplest way to do this, if maybe I've had this conversation with a few potential clients and clients getting ready to retire in the last few weeks, which is, people, as you're earning money and you're buying stuff, you don't necessarily watch how much you're spending every month because money just keeps coming in and you're not seeing your checking account in the negative, so you feel good. If you'd like to make the simplest math possible, take your net paycheck on a monthly basis. So literally what is dropped into your bank account every 2 weeks if you're paid that way. Add those together, gross them up for taxes by about 20%. So increase that number by 20%. You're going to multiply that by 12. That's going to give you your annual income need. You want to subtract out your Social Security benefits if you are Social Security eligible and planning to take Social Security. If you have any other fixed income, so if you are eligible for a pension, if you potentially have a side business that you aren't going to stop, so maybe you have rental income, or maybe you started another business and you know that income is going to continue. Subtract out those numbers. You're going to have your deficit. Then divide that deficit by 4%, and that will give you the lump sum of capital that you're going to need in order to meet that 4% annual distribution.
That's the algebra. It's pretty simple, but at the same time, the important part is making sure that you feel very comfortable with your numbers and be honest with yourself. And that's why Aaron gave this very simple example of, you don't have to do an Excel spreadsheet. How much is being deposited in your bank account right now, maybe twice a month, for your wages? How much is left? Is there some going to savings, forgetting your retirement plan savings, but going to other savings that are there? You can subtract that number off if you want. Getting this to that net number, increase it by 20%, come up with where your sources are, subtract the sources, and then you've got your deficit multiplied by 12 divided by 4%. It's a very simple algebra problem. It's determining what, and we call that the real money. What is the capital we needed to maintain that income stream using a prudent way of withdrawal over a long period of time? And then the fun part is, at least for us, is not only helping you with this, creating the game plan, working with you on the journey, but then developing a portfolio with the purpose of delivering that income need over a long period of time. It's fun.
And we've got our final text question on deck. So keep them coming, 314-931-5877, or text 84126 on the text line.
And our next texter writes, I am working. Does it make sense to keep my investments in the company's 401k plan, or should I move them outside to a different 401k plan?
Well, my suggestion, and generally our suggestion, is that while you are continuing to work, being in your 401k through your employer is the lowest cost environment for you to invest. You're not paying an advisor like ourselves to manage those assets. Also, all 401k plans are required to provide a broad list of options available to you. So you should be able to find some investments that you are comfortable with or happy with their performance over a long period of time. The only instances in which you might consider moving money out of your 401k and into a self-directed IRA before you retire would be maybe you've pulled back at work and you aren't earning enough and you need to take some distributions from your account. That might be a reason that you would move some of those assets. Maybe if your employer is no longer contributing and you're not in love with the options available to you. So I think there are a very limited number of reasons why you would leave your company's 401k before you've actually left employment.
Yeah, and the only thing I would add that to is, generally we're getting this question, but it's about I've left an employer, I'm starting a new plan. Do I take this money and move it into a self-directed IRA, or should I go into my new company's plan? Well, if you do a transfer and the HR department will help you in your new employer. If you're doing a direct transfer from your old 401k to the new one, or 403b, whatever it would be, again, it's a tax-free transfer. Since it's your money, it's already 100% vested. You can invest it differently than your new contributions. You can invest it in the same way. But again, you're keeping in that low-cost environment. And again, I guess we're trying to say this the nicest way that we can. If you're working with an advisor and they're helping you synergize your investments, hopefully those that are outside your plan as well as ones the inside, hopefully they can afford to wait.
It's terrible.
Well, I'm just being honest here.
There shouldn't be any pressure for you to move the assets from your 401k.
Absolutely not. And we really discourage our clients from doing this. I mean, there are a couple that we've had situations where they've insisted that they want to move this money to us, and that's great. We love you, and it's fine. But as we like to say, while we're waiting, while we're laying the bricks in the yellow brick road for you to get ready to do your before your retirement, we're happy to make suggestions. We're happy to make those that will help synergize your portfolio, and we're a cheap date because we don't charge. So save your dough, keep it in your plan until you're ready to retire. And that's really the point where you need to pull the money, to make distributions, to pass it on in the right way. That's really the point where you want to, again, go into a self-directed IRA. Before that, was it Goodfellas? No, it wasn't Goodfellas. It's another one of my movies. Forget about it. Right. Forget about it.
And we have one more last comment before we go to our break, and it says, neither Trump nor Biden will be president. Think Gavin Newsom.
What, are you trying to cause a riot?
And I just thought Jeff would be in a unique position to comment on that, given that, he's out there. He's got to observe a Gavin Newsom product, as it were, up close. And
I don't know. I might need to veto that response. Go ahead, Ted.
OMG. Are you kidding me? The only reason people live in California is because of the weather. And frankly, it's been raining here for a week, so I'm not that impressed. But I have to tell you that...
Spoken like a true Midwesterner, even though you're not.
They're having discussions about here, the San Francisco mayor wants to give $1,200 a month of money to the illegals. I mean, it's craziness out of this is the most in-debt state, and next to Illinois, in the entire country. And all they can do is think about is spending money. That's how politicians get reelected. So, Gavin, no thank you.
I think it's a little bit late for him to even get on the ballot. I mean, I know we're in like a post-law and order situation where they just make it up as they go along, but I don't think he can actually get on the – it'd be very hard, I think, at this point, mechanically to get Biden off the ballot.
I like the creativity of thinking, though, because there's always a surprise before we get to the election. But since we're not election experts, we're retirement planning experts. We'll take our last break of this hour. When we get back, I'm sure we'll have a few more text questions on deck, so please keep them coming. 84126 on the text line, or we'd love to hear your voice. 314-931-5877. We'll be right back.
Freedom isn't just a word. It should be a way of life for all Missourians. Wouldn't it be wonderful to live in a state where you're free from excessive taxes, regulations, and corporate handouts, and free to send your children to the school of your choice? That's why we at the Show Me Institute put together our 2024 Missouri Blueprint, a roadmap on how the state can progress to a bright future. The blueprint covers policy ideas from a Bill of Rights for parents to government transparency, school report cards, healthcare reform, and more. Our vision is for Missouri to be a place where entrepreneurs can pursue their dreams, parents are free to direct the education of their children, and a growing economy provides opportunities for all. Critical to achieving this vision is a government that understands the value of freedom in the lives and future of our people. Check out our 2024 Missouri Blueprint, moving Missouri forward at showmeinstitute.org. The Show Me Minute has been brought to you by Show Me Institute and Show Me Opportunity.
This is Erin Lapidus, the retirement coach. Wouldn't it be great to have a game plan, a real strategy, so that no matter what was going on in the stock market, the economy, or the world, you could be confident about your retirement? Wouldn't that be great? If you're within 5 years of retirement, call me today at 314-863-0008. That's 314-863-0008. Or send me an email at aaron@jblfinancial.com to arrange your free coaching session. Let's get started on your retirement game plan today.
Now, back to Straight Talk on Retirement on the Big 550 KTRS. Here are Jeff and Erin Lapidus.
I love that music. It calms me more than Gavin Newsom. Oh, my God.
Governor Nuisance. I kind of like that one.
It's
another dad joke he didn't make, man. You got competition.
Giving people nightmares.
I love that. It's good. It's good to have fun, but in all sincerity, it's fun and it's really a privilege to get invited on folks' retirement journey. We just love to do that. And it's so rewarding to help folks make their way, not only through the tax code and healthcare issues, but really help them create that game plan so they can enjoy maybe one of the more important and certainly, hopefully, fun part of their lives. So it's great. That's all I can say. And again, our phone lines are open. We'd love to hear from you, 314-931-5877 or 84126 from this politically charged text line this morning.
Well, you started that off, sir.
I had to.
Like an addict, you couldn't help yourself. We've all been there.
Oh, you know what, Dad? We've got a technical life insurance question.
Ooh, goody.
I was supposed to pay $265 to keep my life insurance policy in place. I called on July 10th and left a message to see if I could pull any money from another policy to pay it. I had associated fees and other medical bills to take care of in January. I never heard back, unfortunately. But the bottom line is they told me the grace period was over January 21st, so my policy lapsed. I have another $10,000 policy, but that one was between $15,000 and $25,000, and all I had for my daughter. I'm 70 years old. I'm on multiple medications. I was sent the reinstatement forms and told to send $361 to cover the loan and premium. Do you have any suggestions on how I should proceed? I looked at the wrong policy and thought I had until February 12th to pay. I didn't receive a call from my insurance agent. I don't really know if it came in the mail or not until I got that reinstatement. I'm in Illinois and didn't know if if there is any other way I can get it reinstated without fear of increase or decline.
No, send the money.
Well, also what it sounds like to me is that you aren't getting an increase in the premium that you just owe, the premium that you should have paid, which was that $265 plus probably some interest or the loan amount, which was, which brings it to $361. But it does sound like they're going to reinstate it for you, and you don't have to go through medical underwriting in order to get it reinstated. So it sounds like although you made a little error, most insurance companies are generally amicable to help you correct it, since it's not an exorbitant amount of time that you missed. We're only off by 15, 20 days.
The only other thing I would add to that, and that was a good analysis, babe, is I would certainly insist on sitting down with a representative of. I want to make an assumption that both of the policies that we're talking about here are with the same company. If they are, then what you should be able to do is sit down with a representative and talk about your options. It may be necessary to look at maybe the possibility, and we've done this in the past, which is taking dividends, if there are some accumulated from one contract, and frankly paying off the loan on this other contract, because this loan that you have is going to reduce your death benefit by the exact amount of the loan plus any interest that might be outstanding at the time of your death. So getting rid of this loan is important. Keeping up with your premiums is important. And so I would really look to somebody to help you create a strategy to do that. And frankly, it's an algebra problem like anything else.
Now, you stole my thunder with the dividends and interest. I was going to suggest once you bring the contract back into force that we take a look if we can't reduce the premium and or the loan amount by whatever the interest and dividends that are being created.
Yeah, Rob, you're right. I mean, in many cases, we do find that people are taking their dividends and not using them to reduce the premium or even pay off the loan. They're using them to buy additional insurance, which in this particular case doesn't sound like maybe it's most effective use. But again, coordinating the contracts that you have, I think is important.
Okie doke. And our next texter writes, I contributed to my company's 401k for 5 years. 5 years ago, I moved to a salaried company position to a union position, and I'm no longer allowed to contribute to the company's 401k. Am I legally allowed to pull that money from the 401k and put it into a self-directed investment?
Yes, you are legally allowed to do that. It's you're no longer a participant of the 401k, so it's going to be considered a rollover, which means you'll want to create an IRA account at the custodian or the bank that you'd like to hold the assets, and then you'll get on the phone with the 401k company, or if you're working with someone like ourselves, we'll get on the phone with you and the 401k company and request that they transfer the assets directly from your 401k to your newly created IRA. That way you will not have any tax implications there. And also, just to clarify for everyone a little bit, when we say you don't actually touch the money, that doesn't necessarily mean you don't receive a check. Some 401k plans still require that a check be mailed directly to the beneficiary's address of record. However, that check is going to be made out to your IRA for the benefit of yourself. So you'll see, for example, if you're working with us, we use LPL Financial. So it's going to say IRA for the benefit of your name at LPL Financial. That means that only one place can cash that check at one place. Your IRA account created at LPL or wherever you choose to open your account. So you didn't actually take possession of the funds even though you're holding the physical check. Some 401k plans will now electronically transfer the assets for you so you don't have to worry about anything, but there are still some plans that will require paper checks be mailed.
And and it's fun because I love when folks come in with these checks as their hands are shaking a little bit. Their life savings are here, and can we get a copy of this check? Well, of course, it's not a big deal, but it's important. And so obviously with the current technology, many custodians will do a direct transfer, and that's frankly the preferable way for them to do it, for them and as well as for you.
So we right now, we've exhausted our text questions, but please keep them coming because we do have a few more minutes left. But I wanted to take a few minutes and chat about something I learned over the last few weeks in chatting with clients during reviews. And as you've heard us say before, we are not attorneys. We do not prepare legal documents. However, we are required to know how they work. And in many cases, we're doing fact-checking with attorneys that we know to make sure that the information we're passing along is correct. So I had a question from a client a few weeks ago. Does a pre- or post-nuptial agreement take precedence over a beneficiary designation? So I was having a conversation with our clients, and their beneficiary designation, so the individuals they elected to receive money and in a certain percentage from their accounts with us, had a different distribution pattern than the postnuptial agreement that they had created several years ago. Now, we know that beneficiary designations take precedent over trust agreements. So if your trust and your beneficiary designations do not match, meaning, for example, if you have a spouse, your IRA assets go from one spouse to the other. They're the primary beneficiary. And then you mark the contingent beneficiary as the trust. That means those assets eventually will flow into your trust. If you don't mark that contingent beneficiary as the trust, the assets won't go into the trust. They're going to go to the beneficiaries that you have designated, even if you have a trust document that says something else. So when I noticed this discrepancy between the distribution pattern they were discussing in their postnuptial agreement versus the beneficiary designations, I wanted to make sure that their documents were that our beneficiary designations properly matched their wishes. So what did we find out? We found that the pre- or postnuptial agreements will not, unfortunately, take precedence over your beneficiary designations. So even if they sort of match, meaning that you have the same distribution pattern set up but different percentages, or a similar distribution pattern set up but it doesn't reflect exactly what that pre- or postnuptial agreement says, you want to make sure everything matches accordingly.
And this is interesting because going the other way on this, which is something that we're doing recently, is many of our clients, as Aaron had mentioned, they name their spouse as the beneficiary of their IRAs, and then if they have a trust, they name the trust as the contingent. Well, mostly the trust typically say my money goes to, if I have children, equally distributed, etc., but doesn't generally name grandchildren. Well, now what we're doing is we're adding grandchildren as the co-contingent beneficiary so the clients don't have to go in and change their trusts.
And what you can do is if you have any more questions about trust, prenuptial, postnuptial agreements, or retirement plans, give us a call, 314-863-0008. We'll see you next week.
The opinions voiced in this show are for general information only and are not intended to provide specific advice or recommendations for any individual. To determine which investments may be appropriate for you, consult with your attorney, accountant, and financial advisor or tax advisor prior to investing. Securities offered through LPL Financial, member FINRA SIPC. Investment advice offered through Private Advisor Group, a registered investment advisor. Private Advisor Group and JBL Financial Services, Inc. are separate entities from LPL Financial.
Be listening next week at 9 for more Straight Talk on Retirement with your retirement coaches, Jeff and Aaron Lapidus, on the Big 550.